2 hours before the helicopter plane crash, locally here we had a crash of our own as a police cruiser gave chase to a man on a felony drug warrant out of Huntington, West Virginia, driving at speeds of up to 120 miles an hour, coming back and crashing into the Jimmy Johns. Wayne County, Michigan, the 19th most populous county in the United States. That's home to Detroit, and that is a major pipeline of drugs, and those drugs have made their way in the form of these two men by the names of Brandon Keyshawn Reed, who's 25 years old, along with his friend Richard Harmon III, who's 31 years old, also out of Detroit, bringing drugs down to Huntington and now Parkersburg. This caused a big accident today in our Jimmy Johns, as you see from the pictures earlier. Now let's cover the big story for you guys and tell you what's really going on here. Here is the moment of impact in the lower portion of your screen. Just a horrific scene tonight as all these people are the casualty of another false flag operation. 40 years ago, on January 13th, all the way back in 1982, that was a year and a half before I was even born, we had a very similar event in the exact same spot happen when a crash happened on the 14th Street Bridge. It was an Air Florida Flight 90 on that Wednesday night, destined ultimately for Fort Lauderdale, but it was going to change over in Tampa. Well, other plans happened as it crashed into the bridge on 14th Street, in which 74 of the 79 passengers had died. Of the 6 crew aboard this plane, only one survived, and that was a flight attendant who was pulled from the icy river. Now, 7 vehicles were hit that Wednesday night, and 4 of the people inside those vehicles were killed as a result of this plane taking off in a snowstorm. Now, there would have been 6 survivors instead of just 5 on that plane that night had it not been for a man by the name of Arland Williams. He was initially the 6th survivor, but he gave his flotation device to other people as he laid floating in that icy river in the Potomac that night and wanted to make sure other people were saved. As a result, he ended up drowning, and that bridge was renamed from the 14th Street Bridge to his name in honor of his actions that night. For those of you who are old enough to remember, you'll remember military leaders running out of the nearby building, displaying their own acts of heroism and bravery to try to save who they could from that icy Potomac River that night. A movie was even made detailing the event called Flight 90, which reminds many of us of the movie United 93, detailing the harrowing event of the September 11th terrorist attacks. The cause of the crash was said to be improper de-icing conditions and would set the stage for all future flights from that point forward.
These are the last words from the cockpit of Air Florida Flight 90. The sound of impact is the Tampa-bound Boeing 737 slamming into the 14th Street Bridge in Washington, D.C. and plunging into the icy Potomac River.
It was just before 4, the bridge heavily loaded with commuter traffic, people trying to get home early in a snowstorm.
There is a hole in the ice that looked like someone had taken a baseball and thrown it through a plate glass window. I remember just thinking in amazement, oh my goodness, the plane is underwater with all those people.
On January 13th, 1982, an airliner leaving Washington National in a blizzard crashed into a traffic-packed bridge. Of the many who responded, 4 were particular heroes.
A century ago, Andrew Carnegie created a fund to honor and compensate ordinary people who put their lives at risk to save others. Since then, the Carnegie Hero Fund has recognized nearly 9,000 individuals.
Snow and sleet had fallen steadily all day. Air Florida Flight 90, with 79 on board, was hours late, but around 4 p.m. it finally took off. However, the plane failed to gain altitude, and a mile away it scraped the northbound span of the 14th Street Bridge, hitting 7 vehicles before plunging into the ice-choked Potomac. Miraculously, 6 of those on board survived the crash and surfaced injured in the river. Roger Olean arrived on the riverbanks, tied a makeshift line around his waist, and made his way through the ice-clogged water toward the survivors. Before he reached them, a Park Police helicopter arrived. Flown by Donald Usher and manned by Melvin Windsor, it was the only craft that could get through the driving storm. Working in extreme conditions, they managed to lift 4 survivors to the banks, but the 5th was too injured to hold on. A bystander, Lenny Skutnik, plunged into the icy river, swam to the floundering woman, and supported her until a firefighter arrived.
A Century of Heroes is made possible by MSA, having a passion for safety for 90 years.
Now, locals in our neck of the woods might be reminded of a similar event just 19 years prior where the Silver Bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and we saw a creature known as the Mothman, which some people have believed it to be a bad portent or an ominous warning that may have been perched on that bridge. The last sighting of this creature was on December 15th of 1967, in which 46 people died as they fell off that bridge into the icy Ohio River. So fast forward 19 years later to 1985, when Air Florida Flight 90 crashed into the 14th Street Bridge. But that wasn't the only operator error that happened that day in that same city. You see, just a short distance away, a metro subway crash happened, involving an improperly closed rail switch between 2 stations, involving the deaths of 3 more people. And 25 people were injured and stranded for hours as the city was jammed due to medical response issues.
Crash. Alert 3, 2 helicopters. Helicopter CRJ approaching runway 33.
As of this moment, rescuers have not pulled any survivors from the water. I do want to stress and emphasize these rescue efforts are continuing. And this source told Gabe Cohen the plane is in pieces in the water and that the helicopter is nearby.
I'll keep it off the record, but a well-known congressman just wrote me and said off the record, this congressman was told, I mean, look at that response. I don't think we'd see that kind of response if something significant didn't happen here. I pray that that is not the case. But this congressman is telling me and confirming what Kevin Cork said, that this congressman is being told that there are 60 plus dead. I hope and pray that that is not true. Very, very chilling. Apparently there is some videotape that we might be getting up here momentarily as well. Let me bring into the program now, joining us on the phone, former commercial airline pilot safety expert Kathleen Banks. Kathleen, I can't imagine a response like that unless something very, very significant happened.
Hey, Sean, I'm sorry to be talking to you again under such tragic circumstances. As one of your previous guests said, this is highly ironic in that we did have that very famous crash that actually ended up doing a lot for aviation safety. That would have been Air Florida that hit the Potomac Bridge, taking off out of Washington National in 1982. What's ironic is it is, I believe, the same week. I think it was, roughly about the same week. Yeah, what it's looking like right now, and as you know, this is all very breaking news, all coming in very quickly. Lots of stuff unverified at this point, so we have to be very careful. But reports I'm getting from people in the industry are telling me that this was a commuter airline flight from Wichita to DCA, and that appears to be the case, at least from what we are hearing, again, preliminarily. I don't want to name the airline or the flight number. And again, these regionals have the flag carrier. In other words, many of them fly for a major U.S. airline.
Command, The accident happened in the river. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33. It was probably out in the middle of the river. I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone. So I haven't seen anything since they hit the river, but it was a CRJ and a helicopter that hit. I would say maybe a half mile off the approach end of 33.
We are just getting word from U.S. figure skating that in a statement from them that several members of the figure skating community are believed to have been on board that regional jet flying from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. There was the U.S. Figure Skating Championship wrapped up on the 26th in Wichita. We believe that there was a development camp following that may have just wrapped up, and it may have been figure skaters from that development camp who were on board that flight which collided with the helicopter. We've also heard from the Russian news agency TASS that a Russian figure skater and coach who are apparently married.
Up on, as someone who does train pilots, can you walk me through why on earth we would be conducting a training exercise, so near an active and fairly busy airport at night like this? Is that common?
Well, this is a military flight. Of course, this is going to operate, under different rules than a regular training flight. But it's, for instance, airline flights and other flights are conducting training all of the time. In fact,
correct.
When a new captain is getting upgraded, he has to get his line operating experience. And so actually, those are flights with passengers where you'll have a co-pilot upgraded to captain and you'll have a check pilot on board training him. So even the airlines are frequently conducting training just, in the day in and day out of their job. That part is not that unusual. But, of course, what we're really looking into here is how did it penetrate the altitude that airliner was at? Because it appears, looking at the flight tracking, looking at the flight path, looking at the airspeed, the altitude, the approach to that runway, that the airliner was where it was supposed to be.
Yeah, especially, frankly, Kathleen, if it's at like 350, 400 feet up, that is higher than I would imagine that Blackhawk should have been, to say nothing of the fact that some of the video I've seen seem to suggest it was coming in black, as in lights out. And I'm trying to figure out any number or any manner of reason or explanation for that, but I don't want to dive too much into the speculation. What I would rather do is have you walk us through what happens now. We're looking at live pictures on the right side of our screen, courtesy our Fox affiliate in Washington, WTTG. We have seen some of the staff there pulling pieces of what appear to be fuselage out of the water and then placed onto carts and then loaded up. Tell me what happens there and what we might see over the next several hours as we look forward to daybreak.
Well, as we move into this investigation, of course, not only are we going to have the NTSB involved in the FAA, but we're actually going to have the U.S. military. So that makes this a rather unique investigation. And, of course, we'll make this one of the most investigated accidents probably to come in history. What they'll do is they'll take the pieces of the aircraft and recreate them. They'll take them and put them probably into a large empty hangar and try to rebuild that aircraft as best as they can, and also with whatever is left of the debris from the helicopter. And, of course, they're looking for the black boxes from the airliner. We do not know at this point if the Blackhawk has any kind of recording device for its data or for the cockpit voice. But we do know that the PSA CRJ jet will have that on board, and that one fortunate aspect is that the Potomac in that area is quite shallow, in some places less than 10 feet. So it would probably be expected that they will recover the two black boxes, the data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder quite shortly, hopefully.
Did you see that? X472. American 3130, go around, turn left end 250, climb maintain 3000.
Okay, left heading 350, 3000, American 3130.
Lewis
Embassy 5347, go around, climb, maintain 3000, flight
3000, heading, go around 3000, Blue Streak 5347.
Black Check 3, can you return to base? Black Check 3, proceed directly to Glebe. I need you to land. I need you to land immediately. Can you go to Dulles for a few minutes? Also 7, proceed due westbound. Contact Dulles Tower 120.1. Muscle 13, can you go to Baltimore?
Local, state, and federal resources are all integrated and are coordinating and doing the best we can to recover this site. About 4 a.m. this morning, unfortunately, we transitioned from response to recovery.
Oh, wow. Does that mean everyone?
That's what it's looking like. That's what it's looking like at this point. Yeah.
Do you know how long it will take to find out what happened? I know they've recovered one of the black boxes at least. That's what Lucas was saying. He's there on the ground. How long would it take?
I don't have a direct, or definitive timeline at this point. Again, Secretary Duffy is on the ground. NTSB is got on the ground very quickly. Right. And they will unpack all of this from the digital footprint, the radar track, what we know from GPS movements, exactly what the Blackhawk pilots were saying, doing, and seeing, and their flight trajectory. Obviously, there's a huge piece here with the air traffic controller and what they saw in those last moments and the instructions that they gave. So we'll pull all of those together from those various agencies. Part of our job here is to coordinate all of that and then to keep both the president, the vice president, and all of the senior folks in the administration informed.
Just so people know what the Blackhawk looks like, it's got 4 blades, twin engines, medium lift utility military helicopter. It's a modified version developed for the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard.
They are taking the recovered, the recovered bodies.
I'm just a little taken back by the colonel's last statement. Being a civilian and him having all this training. When we all watched the video, and we've also been able to see, the air traffic control, all the scans and all that, and you look at it and it's going right toward the plane. And we say in our head, why didn't he turn? Right. And the colonel, with all of his experience, the one thing he says, why didn't he turn? And that's going to be the question, because you have 3 fatalities on there. You're not going to be able to question them. How are they going to be able to get that information?
There's not much the American airline can do.
No.
I mean,
no. And we just heard from the experts multiple experts on the program this morning that the plane has the right of way.
I'm just praying that somebody's pulling her out of the river right now as we speak. That's all I can pray for. I'm just praying to God.
When was the last time you spoke with her?
She texted me that they were landing in 20 minutes.
Can you show us a text message that you got from her?
Landing in 20 minutes. The rest of my text did not get delivered. That's when I realized something might be up.